Hello. Hopefully this image looks sort of level. My name is Stefan Senna and this is my channel, The Coherence Path, All Roads Lead to You. I think it looks sort of level. This is my channel where I talk about consciousness and awareness and my painting process. This is a painting that I cut off of the stretcher bars, and it's been in storage, I don't know, a year and a half, and it's got some wrinkles in it. I could iron it and get them out, I guess, but I have so many paintings to go through for this channel. If you want to see the image in pristine uh, condition, then send me an email. I'll send you an image of it. But the purpose of this channel is to discuss my experience and painting process that came to me. Wasn't really so much a painting process, but well, I guess a painting process, but a process of beginning to expand my own awareness. In 1997, I had I don't know what you call it, a near-death experience, out-of-body experience. I went through a tunnel of light. I was taken to different environments after going to the first one, which was a meadow full of flowers, and I met a representation of awareness. It appeared as an angelic female being that spoke to me. But anyway, this, I believe, was a second painting that I did after that experience. I didn't want to be an artist or paint, but after that experience I had, that was the first thing I wanted to do. And I remember waking up inside my body after the experience. I had been standing up shouting and screaming at the ceiling, or in the room at the voice that was talking to me, and just a bright ball of light hit me in the head. I had the experience, and then I woke up, and my body had been laying on the floor, cold concrete floor. And I immediately, contrary to what I'd been upset about for more than a week prior to this, that I didn't want to be an artist, first thing I wanted to do was paint my experience. And this is, like I said, I think the second painting I did. I didn't paint much before this. As a kid, I was mostly a person who drew with lead. I drew hundreds of drawings. I did a lot of watercolors, dry brush watercolors, but I had tried painting with oils when I was a kid, and just the nature of oil paints, just the goopiness and the big blobs of paint, I just didn't know what to do with them. But and when I woke up from my experience, I didn't know how to paint. But I was so driven and excited after that experience to paint what I saw, or at least attempt to. I remember the moment I stood, I propped the canvas up, I brought the paints out that had randomly just been sent to me from a relative I hadn't seen for, I don't know, 20 some years, that I hardly knew. A box of paints she sent, canvases that were randomly just given to me by strangers within that week. I propped the canvas up. I looked at the paint. I didn't know what the hell to do. And I I just looked at the box of paints and I said, "Who wants to go first?" And so I started painting this painting. I think that I covered the entire canvas with red first, and then I started sort of layering in the composition. In my experience that I had, this was, I think, the second place that I was shown in awareness. So it was a highly visionary experience. Years later, after this, um, the movie Contact with Jodie Foster had come out, and even years after it came out, then I saw the movie. And in this, the end of the toward the end of the movie, when Jodie Foster goes through this, using this machine to visit another world, she lands on a beach and meets her father. And that movie, that scene on the beach in that movie, is the closest thing that I to what I experienced. This painting does nothing to communicate what I experienced. This looks like a cartoon compared to what I experienced, because what I experienced was vividly real. And I could still remember most of it today, and that's been 30 years. So, in that experience, I found myself without a body, floating on a seashore. All the colors were different than the ones we experience here. I mean, there were similar colors, but there were also different and other colors. And that's been reported by a lot of people who have near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences. Because our expanded state of awareness allows us to just see other spectrums of experiences. But anyway, in that experience, I found myself on the seashore, and then at some point in that experience, I became I inhabited an sort of an energetic body. It was like all white light and glowed. I could look at my white hand and arm and down at my white glowing light legs. And at some point in that experience, it seemed to carry on for hours, if not days, but it probably was just a couple minutes. But anyway, in that experience, I sat down in the sand, and the sand, I remember the sand was alive. Everything in that experience was alive, like the other experiences. The air was alive, the sand was alive, the water was alive, the rocks, the vegetation, the sun, the clouds, everything was just vividly alive and aware. It was if you could literally just communicate with anything. I could have just sat there and communicated with the sand for eternity. But it was that experience was an opportunity for me to rest, because the first place I was taken to was a meadow, which a lot of people have witnessed going there. It's kind of like a bus stop for souls. I don't know. People have their either health issue or auto accident, or whatever it is that makes them have a near-death experience. That's what we call it. A lot of people go to the meadow. And for me, the meadow was a place where I was told everything I regretted and felt bad about in my life I could let go of, and that everything was working out in divine order, whether I understood it or not. And the second place I went, which was this ocean environment, was a place for me to rest. I just needed rest. I had all kinds of physical things I was dealing with. I had no physical balance. I had no short-term memory. My eyes were tracking differently. I was nauseous, heavily fatigued. I mean, the list went on and on. I'd spent 8 months up at a hospital with two neurologists that couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. But so when I went to this environment, I just rested. I just sat on this beach, and I still remember the sound of the waves rolling in and just lapping in gently, and the light playing off of the waves, and the sound it was like the ocean was singing on some subtle level. The sun, it was intensely bright, but not harsh, and at the same time welcoming and sort of it was communicating with everything around it, especially me. And I didn't feel any sense of temperature, but I had a feeling of warmth in this environment. And I didn't have any other being visit me here. I just was in a state of awareness and had the opportunity to just rest, and that's what I did. I just rested. And, some of my paintings that I've talked about in my other videos, there's embedded meanings that I get out of the images, and those could be different for different people. This painting mostly was about me trying to capture my experience that I had. And, of course, I succeeded in the most childlike way, but I failed in a literal sense. There's no way I could possibly illustrate what I experienced. This painting, for whatever reason, is probably because of the colors and the sun, who knows, and people love the beach. But this painting has always been one of my more popular images if I happen to share it on Facebook. And, but I did have an unusual experience with this painting. I was part of an artist group after my experience. I joined this. I saw some people advertising that they were investigating the book by Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way. And I thought, I should get involved with other artists. And so that's what I did. There was a group of, I don't know, it was probably 8 or 9 people. Once a week we'd meet and we'd share food and talk about art and that book. And once in a while people would bring their art to share. And I never brought my paintings. I never shared anything much about my story at all. Until this one woman joined the group, and I don't remember how it happened, but we both shared that we both had a near-death experience, and people said that we both looked like a couple light bulbs, and that we looked like, we kind of looked alike in a way energetically, because we sort of were lit up. And that's the way you are after your near-death experience. You'll be lit up for a while. I think it's because you're allowing your awareness to expand, and so you naturally become more vibrant as a person. People sense that. But anyway, I hadn't shown any of my images, but I don't know if it was that conversation that prompted it, but so I decided to bring some of my paintings to share with the others, and so that's what I did. I brought, I think, 3 or 4 of my paintings, and this was one of them. Now, this painting, if you probably can't see it, or maybe you can from the image, but you'll notice that it's not shaped very well, because when I when I got this canvas, this is one that was given to me, and I started painting this painting, my balance, and I still don't see level like other people do. I have to use a level to actually find level, but this thing's a little off level because my brain, was struggling with that whole concept at the time due to my injuries. But anyway, I shared this painting along with some others, and people liked him, and that was great. And then I took him home, and we continued meeting once a week. And then some, I don't know, weeks or I don't know, maybe months went by. I don't remember, but at some point, a friend of mine said, "Hey, we're going to have a potluck for so and so, a woman in the group, because she's leaving town, leaving the group, and we want to say goodbye." I thought, "Oh, okay." Now, this other person I didn't really know, this person that was leaving, I had, as you do in large groups, sometimes one person more than another, and some people you never really get to really know, and I didn't really get to know this woman at all. I just, we might have said hi or how you doing, that was about it. We'd all just discuss that book by Julia Cameron as a group and go our ways. So anyway, I didn't really know that woman. I don't remember her name now, but so anyway, we had a potluck for her, and I remember it was on, I think it was on Mount Tabor here in Portland. So I made a little salad, or I chopped up some watermelons. I don't remember what I brought to the potluck, but I got out of my car at the park, started walking up the hill because I could see where people were at the picnic table. And I saw this woman about 20 yards to my left, and she saw me and she raised her hand. She said, "Hey, Stefan, I want to talk to you about something." And immediately I just felt like, oh no, what did I do? Did I offend somebody? Did I offend her? Is there something I did wrong? Because I could tell that there was something very weighty emotionally impregnating her question. And so I kind of slowed my pace, waiting for her to catch up, wondering, oh gosh, what does she want to talk to me about? Because I didn't even know her. And she walks up to me and she says, "I just wanted to share something with you, that when you brought your paintings, there was a painting you brought that spoke to me." And she said, "I decided to quit my job, leave my boyfriend, stop smoking, and move out of state because I saw your painting." And I thought, what? I was a little surprised. And she said, yeah, she said, I'd been searching, I've been reading books and searching, trying to figure out what I needed to do in my life, what changes I need to make, and I just could not figure it out. I couldn't make the shift, and this is my wording here. She couldn't make the shift in her own consciousness to make any change, though she was trying. But when she saw this painting, she told me which painting, she got a message. It became clear what she needed to do. She needed to focus on herself and make decisions that were healthier for her. And so that's why she was moving out of state. I think she was moving back east somewhere. She was quitting smoking. She was breaking up with her boyfriend, and she's quitting her job. So all those things that she was involved in, not saying the boyfriend was bad, who knows? I don't know, didn't know anything about her. She didn't mention anything. Because you can be in a perfectly good relationship, but it not be the right one, right? So anyway, she shared this information with me. She started crying. I started tearing up, and I was shocked and amazed by that she would share the information with me, and also that the information was what it was. I was like, what? How would one of my paintings affect somebody else? And that started me on a small little journey of trying to figure out if these images affected people. And so it was a few months after that that I put about 10 of my paintings in an art show. Lake Oswego at that time had a community art show, and it was free to enter. There was no judging. You just show your art. It was in this beautiful big building downtown Lake Oswego, and I put several of my paintings in there. And I did it for the purpose of not trying to sell my paintings or anything. I did it for the purpose of analysis. I took a pad and paper and a book with me, and I sat down in a chair at the end of a long hallway within which several of my paintings hung. And I just observed people's responses to my paintings. And it was quite interesting. There was one particular painting that a couple walked past, and the woman said, "Oh, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life." And then about 10 minutes later, a woman came by herself, and she literally stomped her foot. Her whole body was shaking, and her arms were like shaking. And if I remember right, she even made fists with her hands, and she said, "That's the ugliest picture I've ever seen in my life." She had this just visceral, emotional response to it, opposite of what that other woman had. I thought, well, that's interesting. I remember one time I was eating lunch outside at a table outside a restaurant, and I was drawing a picture. I was drawing a picture of, it was like a desert plain with mountains in the background. And in the foreground, there was a being of light meditating, sort of in a, like in a yoga posture when you sit, your legs are crossed. And the being was just meditating. And in the background, the mountain was levitating off the ground. And this elderly woman walked over, and she was just minding her own business. She was just crossing the street, and I was next to the curb where the cars were parked, and she made her way over, and she saw that I was drawing, and she was all happy and joyful, and like, "Oh, do you mind if I look and see what you're drawing?" And I didn't say anything. I just gestured with my hands open, and I sat back and I smiled at her and letting her know, "Yeah, you can look if you want." And as she looked down at my drawing, her face went from joy to complete anger. She raised one of her arms as if she just wanted to hit me or grab the drawing or whatever. She just got really upset. And then she sort of caught herself and she walked away. I thought, wow, that's a very odd reaction to this image. Now, I will say that I don't believe, excuse me, I don't believe my images have any supernatural power, or, that they exude some, angelic energy or cosmic vibrations or whatever. I think that's what people read into things, personally, but I think all that idea, though, comes from consciousness. We consciously interpret things based on our own personal view at the moment. So the woman in the artist group who, she said it in a way that the picture told her what to do, sort of like, well, it finally cleared up for me what I needed to do. But what really happened is that in the moment she looked at the painting, I believe that she took a break. she disconnected from the resistance or attachment to whatever struggle she was going through, and she found a space in that particular moment to relax. And in that moment, her own intuition stepped in and said, oh, you could go this way. And that's all that happened. It wasn't the image itself. Because she could have had that experience with a walk in nature, watching kids play in a park, playing with their own artistic skill, who knows? And I believe it's the same for the other situations. So, our consciousness creates the meaning of whatever event we're experiencing. And that's something we struggle with as humans. We might experience something tragic, and the meaning we place on it, we'll for years say, oh no, that whole event caused me to do this, or that whole event made me the way I am. But it was us that decided in that moment whatever meaning we attributed to that. And I'm not saying we do it on purpose consciously, because we could do that as little kids and carry on with the same idea about something for the rest of our lives. It could be a hatred of horses because a horse kicked us when we were a kid, or whatever it is. Anyway, this is still one of my favorite paintings. Maybe I'll paint it over again. Now that I'm a little better at throwing paint around. But I deeply appreciate the opportunity to paint now. It's not something I wanted to do. I had no interest in doing art. But it's become a modality through which I illustrate the evolution of my own consciousness. Sometimes when I sit with this image, I get different feelings, but overall, I just get a feeling of peace. And that may be because my own experience that I had that started this image. I start remembering and experiencing that experience. Or it may be that when I look at this image, the particular colors or the scene invites me to relate to the subject sitting at the beach. But irregardless, I find it enjoyable to sit and look at it. If you want to sit and look at this image, just turn the volume off so you don't have to hear me talk. If you want a clearer vision of it, I have it on my photo album at Facebook, or I can send you a file of it. Or if you want a print of it, well, I can send you a print of it. I did take professional photos of all my paintings, so I can make prints of them if somebody's interested. But thanks for stopping by and visiting my channel. I'll see you in the next one, maybe. Hopefully you got something out of this one. I appreciate the opportunity. Subscribe if you want, and have a great day out there.